Those first 7 years building Yego were the sharpest, steepest learning curve of my life. And we didn't do anything else but Yego. Every year, every day, lots of late nights. So I proactively started seeing a psychologist. I'm like, I need something here because I'm losing a grip or a sense of something. And I feel like I have certain mental blocks that are preventing me from being able to say or speak in the way or do the things that I need to do. When I joined as co-CEO after being chairperson of the board and a non-executive director, that was about 2022. We were at about 20 people serving about 5,000 children. We are now serving just under 1 million children and grown the team to about 70 people. And it's going to take, and after it's taken everything, it's going to come and take another massive scoop. And you need to know for yourself that when you are at the lowest points, that this is still what you want to do. Would I do this for free?
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, then it's learning and education.
Yeah.
So my frustration with myself was that I don't understand my clients. Most of them, financial services, telcos, etc. I don't understand why they can't get stuff done. I can't understand why things don't get fixed. I can't understand why they can't make decisions. I just don't understand them. They're a black box to me right now.
Yeah.
I think my boredom becomes a bottleneck to the team because I can't fire up around those problems because I figured it out without even saying a word.
Yeah.
And that decline in energy there, but I'm like, but I still love this thing. I still want this thing to work. And it was really a number of years of coaching where I was like, getting my mind around how I still love my business and support my business without being the CEO.
I mean, to have access to this kind of power of technology in the past, you needed to know the people.
Yes, and you needed lots of money.
And
it's an incredible time, Jason, because now technology finally has the capacity to match our imagination and what we can do there.
That is such a powerful thought, that technology now matches our imagination. Welcome to the Founders at Work podcast, where we unpack real-world founder scale-up stories to mine the priceless principles that founders have learned the hard way so that you don't have to. I'm Jason Goldberg, your host, author of Art of Scale, serial founder, and joining me today is Rapelang. She is one of Africa's pioneering technologists. She's got a really impressive LinkedIn profile. It's intimidating and a little bit bewildering how she holds it all together, but somehow she does. And today she's going to give us a masterclass in personal reinvention. What does it take to keep reinventing yourself chapter after chapter, where in part that means confronting what you don't yet know and also letting go? Today, we're going to explore how scaling a business often just means first scaling yourself. So welcome, Rapelang.
Thank you so much, Jason. It's an amazing experience to be here.
Yeah, it's amazing to have you here. I'm really privileged to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about the businesses you run. I mean, you do a lot of things right now, but primarily we're going to talk about Rekindle and Imagine. Give us a little bit about them in a nutshell, their missions and their battle stats.
Yeah. So my focus at this point is really around education and innovation. And in the education bucket, it's really Rekindle Learning and Imagine. And for me, Rekindle Learning was always about how do we not just put content online, but actually make it more effective for people to learn so that they can become more competent and drive their own performance, whether it's at university or companies. And to really move away from this tick box-based training thing and move to mastery-based learning. That's really the ambition. And now we are still helping organizations build these capability or skills engines by pitching content at the right level for the right person in the right context and delivering it in this TikTok-like bite-sized learning.
Amazing. It's been about 10 years now on the Rekindle size.
Yes.
Tell us where Rekindle's at, number of clients and so on.
So we've got 10 employees all spread around the country. We've been remote since before COVID. And we've got about 8 active clients typically, and then a lot of sort of short-term clients that about 10 come in and out. Revenue between 5 to 15 million rands a year, depending on how it's been. And great team there that continues to thrive.
Amazing. And then there's also Imagine. Tell us a bit about that.
So Imagine is an organization. I was part of the founding board when we started in 2017, still in EdTech, but now focused on young children, developing literacy and numeracy, and working in partnerships with governments to scale EdTech programs within Malawi, Sierra Leone, and Tanzania. When I joined as co-CEO after being chairperson of the board and a non-executive director, that was about 2022. We were at about 20 people, serving about 5,000 children. We are now serving just under 1 million children and grown the team to about 70 people. So significant growth there as we expand into multiple countries.
So, I mean, you're fundamentally harnessing the power of technology to prepare future fit people. In the one case, it's workers in the workforce, and in the other case, it's learners for the future workforce. And because you're scaling through tech, the impact and the number of end users dramatically outscales your headcount. So you've got thousands of teams on Rekindle Learning, maybe 10,000 plus. On 10 employees, that's an impressive ratio. And that's the power of technology. And on the Imagine side, 1 million plus learners on 100 staff. I mean, those are impressive ratios. And that's just the power of technology to solve problems at scale. Tell us a bit about the personal spark that fueled this focus.
I graduated from UCT, 20 years ago or so. And towards the end of my last year, I got the clarity that actually this corporate thing might not work. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it felt like I was going to end up in a big system that didn't necessarily prioritize me or my interests, especially being a Black woman, technology, and all of these things. And then on top of it, it's not an opportunity where you can choose your manager. And for me, that was important because I felt like the first 10 years post-university was the most important in forming who I will become. And I wanted to be able to determine how I spent my time and what I gave my attention to. And to me, corporate didn't seem to give me that opportunity. And that's all I could frame it as at the time. And luckily, there were a couple of other colleagues in my class who, for their own reasons, didn't want to go on the corporate journey. And we started chatting, and we happened to do a module in business science in our last year called New Venture Planning, which introduced this concept of entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh, is that a thing? Okay, whatever it is, if you can choose what you do and what you can decide what matters and how you spend your time, that's the thing for me.
Wow. I mean, so that's the entrepreneur bone coming through loud and clear early on. And so the first thing you did is you built Yago. So that's way back before, a decade before Rekindle Learning. Tell us a bit about that founding journey.
Sure. So as students at university, remember that, prepaid calls were really expensive at the time. Smartphones were coming out, Wi-Fi was becoming available. And as students, we never really had money to make those calls. And of course, there was Skype.com, but there wasn't anything on your phone. So as students, we thought, surely, yes, we're poor, but it doesn't have to be this bad. There should be an alternative. And with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and 3G coming up, surely our phones should do smarter things. And that's what started the journey of Yago. We graduated end of December 2005, and we committed to each other, 3 of us at the time, that we'll be back on like the 16th of Jan back in Cape Town and start working on this thing. And by some sheer miracle, we all came back and were ready to do this thing and figure out what this thing was. And it was an incredible journey where, for me, it was incredibly affirming that you can have an idea. And this is the power of software and computer science. You can have an idea, and without spending 8 years becoming an actual scientist or an accountant or whatever, you could produce a product, inject it into reality, into people's hands, and they would use it. And by the time we launched our first version a year later, for that to happen for me was like an earth-shattering moment. I'm like, you can truly influence the world.
I mean, it's incredible. You were building, mobile tech-based startup before that was a thing. In a place, Africa, where nobody thought world-class tech would come from, right? And 100%. You were doing it. And so what's really interesting is how you were asking the kind of questions you were like, surely with these technologies now available, this should be possible. but it wasn't happening. So then you made it happen.
Yes.
That's a classical innovator's bone over there. And then I imagine you were a pretty hands-on founder leader in those days. Tell us about how you experienced that business building journey.
So there were three of us, and we were all computer science grads. Lesson learned in non-diverse teams. I was never a great programmer, and I realized, guys, actually, no, I can't do this anymore. I'll do everything else, and the two of you code. So then I essentially did everything else, accounting, the marketing, the business plans, producing all of the documents to get to try and investors, approaching the banks, approaching angel investors. So I was doing all of that while the team, initially just 2 people, quickly grew to 5. We were trying to build the first prototype, and we got our first working prototype, I think September of that year, sort of 9 months later, which was like the first call you could internet mobile call we made on our phones, which is like a mind-blowing moment. And now it was just the question of how can we make that happen all the time?
For everyone.
And that was a formative experience, and that then I became kind of the default person between business people and technology. And I always say that the main reason I was able to pass computer science is that half of it was writing. And writing I could do, communicating I could do. And that ended up being my, superpower along that journey. And I've stayed in that space where, again, I don't code, but I'm not intimidated by code. And I can stand in the middle, zoom out and see what it means to business and society.
And I mean, you guys were young. So a bunch of young computer science graduates now building a business, which is very different to being in academia. What was that inner journey like?
Sure. Those first 7 years building Yego were the sharpest, steepest learning curve of my life. And we didn't do anything else but Yego. Every year, every day, lots of late nights. I think I started realizing that I was hitting my personal limit in terms of, I don't know what it was, just being able to engage and manage team members, hiring and firing people within about a year. So I proactively started seeing a psychologist. I'm like, I need something here because I'm losing a grip or a sense of something. And I feel like I have certain mental blocks that are preventing me from being able to say or speak in the way or do the things that I need to do. And I'm not quite sure where they come from, but I need to get a sense of it because it's like crippling me. I feel like I'm at a limit over here. So I've been a big believer in therapy, coaching from the beginning, and it's not something that I stop. You keep growing all the time. And I think some of the biggest challenges were, again, trying to be assertive to your own peers. You graduated together. We've now hired a bulk of our classmates from university, but now suddenly I'm the boss somehow, and we've got to drive performance. How do you have more assertive conversations without undermining the friendship? How do you have conversations about money and say, we can't actually pay you this month, and not sort of hide away in the shame of it, and dealing with the shame of having money or not money, figuring out what you put money into if you've only got so little versus the other things that you need to do. And then still figuring out, how do you live? How do you eat? When do you exercise? When do you sleep? How do your friends not forget about you? There was,
I mean, there's an incredible amount of self-awareness there for such a young founder to see a shrink. I mean, there's so many barriers to that, to taking that step. And I mean, there's a saying for a reason that we're often, as founders, we are the bottleneck, right? Our own personal growth and limitations. And there's so much self-awareness in recognizing that and doing something about it, and getting the unlock through coaching and therapy. I mean, I remember my first business coach, I actively sought out a business coach who was also a clinical psychologist because I realized my own pathologies are probably the biggest pathologies of the business. And, for founders, frankly, we've all got pathologies. And if you don't have any, then thinking that is your main pathology. Right?
Exactly. And those are the most dangerous ones.
So you can see the theme of personal growth coming out early in your story. I mean, remarkably early, to be honest. Most founders take a lot longer than that to start unlocking themselves to unlock the business. Okay, and then you exited. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we got our first angel investment soon after we got that prototype working. It was, a rare occasion at the time. Fundraising in South Africa was a wild, wild west. But we were lucky enough eventually I gave up asking for money. I would go to the banks and all of these government schemes, etc., and nothing was happening there. And then I just started asking people for advice. And initially spoke to a couple of people in telecoms and other technology areas. And I found that when you kept following up with them, you demonstrated that you've taken this thinking or advice or insight, and now you've been able to improve X and Y. We've updated our business plan in such and such a way. My emails are punctuated. I demonstrate that I'm actually taking the input. That actually allowed me to build relationships and be regarded, even though we had nothing and we still weren't really sure what we were doing yet. And just being able to be reliable, dependable, package documents, follow up, those very, very basic things really allowed me to open the door to a couple of relationships. And eventually they're like, I think I know someone who might actually be able to invest. And that's how we were introduced to one of the founders of Pastel accounting software. And the group of them invested in Yego. And that allowed us to launch and get servers and pay ourselves a something kind of thing. And then we quickly hit the reality that, shucks, this was the world before Play stores, iStores. There was no iPhone, there was no Android. People were not putting credit cards to pay for stuff on their phone. We can't get money. And we were also getting hit by credit card fraud. It was a nightmare. Well, like, the consumer market is going to be very hard to monetize. Where else can we collect money from? And it's like, well, in business environments, it's actually better. The connectivity is more managed. You can do debit orders or contracts and things, and it's a little bit more structured way to get money. And we're like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. But none of us has ever worked in one of these, and we don't even know where we find these organizations called businesses other than ourselves. And luckily, in addition to launching the consumer-facing Yego, one of the other things we had part as our plan was to white label the platform. So we had been engaging with other new age, next generation telcos and VoIP players around the world who were interested in licensing our platform. And there was one particular one in South Africa. I don't think they're running now, Telfree, where they had the best infrastructure. Our applications ran the best there. And they had a network of small and medium businesses. So we started essentially white labeling our platform to them and a couple of other people, getting a couple of license fees there and there to keep things going. And then eventually we were running out of money. And of course, investors are not good in those, at least back then. It wasn't a case where an investor says, right, let's solve the problem. It was, you're bad, fix it. It was a very, very different world. And we then started actively looking for funding. We went to the US. We were part of Endeavor and Enablers and all these other places where we tried to raise funding. And then eventually Telfree decided to buy a majority stake in Yego for 51% of the organization. And then essentially we became the R&D arm. They had the interconnects, the infrastructure for the telcos, the relationships, and there were older, normal people who knew how to work with business owners, etc. And then that allowed us to be able to get cash in and to start building other voice over IP related products. We built one of the first cloud hosted PBXs. It was actually a beautiful product. We tried to sell it as usual to the operators, but back then they were, still sitting in a lot of money. And there wasn't a need to provide services yet. It's really only hit now. And for me, it's astonishing to be able to see the journey, because we were at tables with them where they were very clear that they would never need to do these things. And remember, there was a time when VoIP was actually legal. And then at the side, they were also sending us lawyers' letters telling us they were going to shut us down. We're like, how? Technically, it's not possible, but keep coming, bring the letters, bring the letters. And so it was a really crazy time there. But that's how we were then able to get a stable positioning. And what the aim was there was, let's build a collection of these sort of next generation telco products, grow the market here, and the market will have to consolidate at some point. What we didn't factor in, and the naivety of youth, is that actually now we're not in charge.
Yeah.
This is not our rodeo anymore. And we can't necessarily make the decisions or direct the conversations or the strategy the way we necessarily wanted to. And sort of 4 years later, now this is total of 7 years, it was like, I think there was a major consolidation between Vox and ECN or one of the other things. So there were shifts in the market, and we're like, the way things are, we're going to miss this. And I'm tired of the telco cowboy world. It's actually a very dodgy industry. In general, lots of nonsense goes on in there. And we want to get back to software, to product again. So, we've done our earnout, we've passed our time, and it's like, we're done. We've made our country. It's time. Then took a break. Semi-slept for about a year to try and get my bearings. My first true holiday. In 7 years.
Yeah, wow. So, I mean, there's an incredible amount of gold to mine there. The cul-de-sac you ran into, and the pivot, and the simple question, where do we find money, and how, like the repetition of that cycle. It's like swimming in an underwater maze in the dark with a limited oxygen supply, right? And you got to find your way to product market fit and then to profitability, and anyway, so you're in that movie. And it led you to the corporate partnership, which I think a lot of startups on this continent land up arriving there. There's just something to having a big brother in the picture that unlocks, right? It brings trust, and doors are opened, and distribution, and so you got there, but there's the downside. And eventually that downside, just wore on you, and enough, you'd done your time in that startup, and fortunately you'd had a bit of an exit over there. So smart to sleep, right? Take a breather.
I had no choice. I was more than beat.
Yeah, no, it's grueling. I mean, it's grueling. So then, how did the Rekindle spark come about?
During our Yego time, we did consider doing some learning bits here and there, but we just never had the space and time to do that. And, during this sabbatical type thing, I thought I tried to get into business school, but I didn't get into any of the top ones in the US that I would have gone to. So I was like, well, let's get back on the horse. And one of the learnings for me has always been from Yego was, right, I know I can put the work in and put the sweat in to make something work. And initially, Yego, the telco business, it was an intellectual exercise more than this is Rapelang's soul kind of thing. And then I realized that actually, a business is going to be tough either way. And it's going to take, and after it's taken everything, it's going to come and take another massive scoop. And you need to know for yourself that when you are at the lowest points, that this is still what you want to do. Would I do this for free? And that's when I was like, and then it's learning and education. That I would do for free. And then when the business takes from you, you're not empty. Kind of thing. So one of the things that I had always frustrated me with the edtech space, especially at the time, was that it was all about just putting stuff online, but it wasn't fundamentally changing our engagement with content, and it wasn't necessarily making it more effective to build skills. This time with starting Rekindle, I was also very clear that I wanted to do it different. I didn't want to fundraise, spend millions on product, and then figure out that you do not have distribution. And distribution is everything.
Everything.
So I was like, this time I'm going to do it smarter. I'm going to bootstrap. And then I found a platform, a micro-learning platform that was built out of the Europe, Austria at the time. They were not operating in Africa. Asked and negotiated an exclusive license for Africa, given that they were not interested anyway. And I could work with that. So then I had a product that I could start engaging the market with and start engaging customers or potential customers with. And my initial thinking was always that it's not exactly what I wanted, but it's a good enough start for me to get into the market, maybe build up a customer base, build revenue, and then through the learning and engagement with the market, I would I'd figure out what exactly to build. And it took a while, but eventually it panned out, where then we got this massive client contract, and it was very clear that this current product, they couldn't customize it to what we needed. And it was now time to actually build our own product. And we could sink all of that money into, now let's build a product that is ours, and we understand how we're going to make it different to meet our market needs and make it easier to sell. So it was both wanting to do a business in a different way, but also wanting to address something that, for me is so important, to be able to think about how we uplift the continent.
Yeah.
If we're ever going to take our place on a global stage, we need to be able to get skills right.
So you found your why, right? And in the first business, it doesn't sound like there was a big why. And you banked that lesson, and you made sure before the next one that you had your why. But you've also, what's been so impressive about your journey is how you have, you've harnessed the cutting edge state of technology to break constraints and solve problems at a scale that previously wasn't possible. How were you seeing that in the early days of Rekindle?
The simplest thing really was, there's lots of content out there. There's so much free stuff. It's actually unbelievable. But is it pitched at the right level for the right audience in the right context? That's actually the power of it. And is it just like a PDF, or is it a town hall? Nobody wants those things, right? Everyone, we see people addicted on social media. So why shouldn't learning be packaged in a similar format? And then on top of it, not just do tick box training, but focus on mastery-based learning. And mastery-based learning means you keep learning until you have mastered the topic. As opposed to, I spend 30 minutes, therefore I'm checking the box that I'm done. That doesn't help you when you're trying to perform in an organization. So this is why it's we've designed the platform to be personalized and adaptive, focusing on your weak areas until you demonstrate that you've actually mastered that thing, which is what you want anyway. It's not like even as an employer, you're going to fire people if they fail an exam. So you might as well make it so that they can keep learning until they can perform. And to be able to do that is incredible. So a simple example, one of our bigger clients with African Bank, they at the time were trying to get lots of their staff phase accredited. And this is like a 600-page manual or so, terribly boring to read. They had done your normal training workshops, 3-day things, try to get the information through people's brain, but still not enough people were passing, right? And then same content, same deplorably boring content, packaged in at least bite-sized learning videos and interactive questions. So no passive reading, no glossing over a slide and thinking you've read it. Tracking what you're getting wrong, bringing you back to the things you're getting wrong until you demonstrate that you've actually completed it and mastered it. Suddenly, your pass rate triples. And you can have more people that are financial compliant to be able to give financial advice in an organization. And it's a very simple thing. But we've known that technology, especially in the learning space around reinforcement, can play an incredibly powerful role. Whether you're a student and you're doing your homework afterwards, you should be doing reinforcement learning, or whether you're an employee on the go, you've already got your undergrad, you've got your basics. But now it's about the touch-ups that are specific to your context that you need to keep learning on the go, and learning in the reinforcement style. Active, question-based, mastery-based is the real way to kind of embed knowledge and give you a chance of being able to perform and apply that knowledge.
So what I'm hearing here is that the state of technology enabled you to build real mastery in learners at scale through personalization at scale and in facilitating engagement with the content until achieving mastery and having a feedback loop that tells you when that's achieved at scale through the technology. And that's the unlock for building competence on the continent at scale through tech. And so that's the wave that you jumped on.
Exactly.
Now, it's been a couple of years, 10 years, but there came a point where you recognized the need to shift gear personally. And you made a bold decision considering how you decided to unfold your career when you're leaving college, right? You didn't want the corporate environment. And then like a couple of years into Rekindle, you chose a corporate role. Tell us about that and the why behind that decision.
It was a bit of a push and pull, but the drive from my side was coming to this distribution question. Growing a business B2B is still the easier way, especially if you're bootstrapping. A B2C model requires a lot of money and requires you to really raise quite a bit. So my frustration with myself was that I don't understand my clients. Most of them, financial services, telcos, etc. I don't understand why they can't get stuff done. I can't understand why things don't get fixed. I can't understand why they can't make decisions. I just don't understand them. They're a black box to me right now. And yet they are my path to growth and scale. And I really wanted to get past the anxiety of not understanding them at all. And then on top of it, it was a potential where if things were to go right in that environment, the telecom group actually has huge penetration into so many parts of our society. If they digitally transformed effectively, I still believe they can raise the GDP of a country a few percentage points just by digitizing and performing. So it was like, maybe I can do impact at a different scale and finally understand these clients.
So, I mean, that is profound, because what you recognized is that the business models you were scaling required partnering with behemoths, corporate behemoths, for distribution. But your distribution was being ineffective through organizational dysfunction of those distribution partners, and you didn't know why. And you needed to fix that. You needed to understand why. And so you did what to most founders would seem like blasphemy, and you went and joined. You became an employee, Chief Digital Officer, BCX, and you went into the belly of the beast, and you spent a few years as a leader there. And it became your job to drive those changes that you were not seeing happen from the outside. What did you learn?
Sure. I only survived a year. And I think, the biggest things I learned was I had underestimated just how much my journey had shaped me to be an innovator, nimble and fast. I assumed that people had access to that capacity or skill in some way, shape or form. I was not prepared for just how different I was and how other people's journey was. And then I'm like, they actually don't know how to solve their problems. And for me, that was a mind-blowing rip. They actually don't know. And while they're interested in all of these technologies, they don't understand them well enough to understand how they apply them in their context without blowing, millions of rands and ending up with no value. And this is why they're also not ready to consume my product, because they're actually so far back in that journey. They're not ready for performance-enabled learning. They've got other things, and I'm like, wow. That's part of what prompted me then when I left to start Fast Forward Innovation, because I was like, the things that I thought were basic are not basic at all. And in the cases where I do talks and innovation-related interventions, let's actually help companies test and validate early-stage ideas or initiatives by applying lean startup and design sprint methodologies. And then I also realized that through those kind of engagements, as much as I hate being a consultant, that was the most effective way to educate them on their needs, help them articulate them, and understand how technology can be applied in that context. And then they're ready to buy a technology product. But they're not ready to buy a product if they haven't had that kind of consulting advisory experience. And definitely didn't want it to be like a management consulting thing, but real product prototyping, real customer engagement, real validation of ideas or not. And that epiphany was very clear coming out, that this is actually the big gap and why governments or large organizations and many businesses are not going to digitize and transform.
Wow. So you talk about an MBA, right? Like a post-grad qualification that gives you next level capability. But for you as a founder, you didn't need an academic degree. You needed to figure out what was holding up distribution. Like, why was it not happening?
Why can't they buy?
Why can't they buy? And so you did an MBA by taking a job. and going inside the belly of those organizations. And it fundamentally shifted your understanding of why they can't buy. And that shifted how you approach the problem of distribution. I mean, that's an amazing investment in yourself as a scale-up leader and your future. Scaling those sorts of business models. It's not what people would think is happening, but
for sure. And in a lot of the traditional Silicon Valley world, they say do one thing, focus deep. I'm like, our market is not mature enough. I have fast forward innovation, the consulting advisory piece, because that's how I can get a customer to a place where they can buy. Maybe they're buying a Rekindle Learning or any of the other amazing startups that we have collaborations with. Now they're ready to buy, and we can help them validate what exactly they want from you. And then even the startup is happy because they're getting an educated customer, which is far less painful than one who doesn't know exactly what they want. So that helps build pipeline for product companies.
So now there's another dimension to this decision, right? To take on the BCX role, which is you had to let go of the CEO role of your baby, right? The first company you founded with your big why, and you had to leave that behind. That couldn't have been easy, an easy personal decision to make. Tell us about that.
No, not at all. I think I got to the place where I've been doing 15 years of startup ops. Like I know how to hit the grind. I know how to fix problems without money. Like I can do it with my eyes closed now. And I'm actually not learning enough. And I think my boredom becomes a bottleneck to the team because I can't fire up around those problems because I figured it out without even saying a word. And that decline in energy there. But I'm like, but I still love this thing. I still want this thing to work. And it was really a number of years of coaching where I was like getting my mind around how I still love my business and support my business without being the CEO, and learning that there are other ways to drive and contribute to business as a chairperson, as a strategic partner for it. And that's the kind of journey I had to go down. So to be able to let go and say, right, actually, there's someone who's going to find these things exciting because they are at the right point in their journey. Whereas I just want to do product and strategic sales. All the other things I've done ad nauseum for 15 years, I'm good.
So you were hitting the point many of us, particularly innovative visionary founders, hit, which is the work was getting done. And not aligned to what you love doing. And that's because you'd been running for a while now. And a lot of the exciting, visionary, future-focused problem solving, was not really your day job anymore. It was now a lot of the grind. And you had that moment of clarity that the grind is not my sweet spot. And so letting go and freeing up a leader more aligned to the grind, which they don't experience as grind the way we do.
They're going to be early in the curve, and it's going to be thrilling.
Yeah, exactly. And so that liberated you for what lies ahead. And was it after that you also took on the Imagine role?
So the sequence was actually, I went to BCX, and then I did have a CEO. I came back out of BCX to Rekindle Learning for another 2 years or so. And then I started the journey of now the BCX had scratched something open, and I needed to figure out how to recalibrate my kind of life again. So that's when I did the coaching period for a few years to figure out how do I get around to letting go effectively, but still supporting the business. And having realized that I want to do product and strategic sort of sales and partnerships. And I realized that with the Imagine opportunity, and because now we had proven out the EdTech solutions and we were ready for scale, we had done all the research there. I was like, I can build product at a ridiculous scale there, which is really, 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 really what drives me. And be pushed on sort of the partnership level, not just with funders, but with governments, etc. I'm like, it's a whole new learning experience where I can also finally get tech to scale, which is still my pet peeve on the continent, where there's so much innovation, so many small scale pilots. And I'd actually gotten to the place where I was disillusioned that there would ever be scale adoption of technology in a meaningful way. So when the Malawi government then committed to take on the program and say we want to roll this out to all of our 6,000 public primary schools, I was like, wow. In my lifetime, this is bigger than what I can do in my own business, and I can finally get product at scale.
Why driven? You were purpose driven there. Yeah. So okay, amazing. So then came an increased focus on the Imagine role. I imagine you.
Excuse the pun. Yes.
Yeah, excuse the pun. You didn't get the same amount of time on Rekindle, right? Your baby. So there's another bit of letting go there in order to look forward.
Yeah.
But you were looking forward because of the scale of impact you saw that was going to be possible.
Correct.
In Imagine Worldwide. And I guess you were also seeing, I mean, they've got a very innovative model. You've got a great model at Imagine, and technology is unlocking so much for what's possible for quality education at scale on the continent. So tell me tell us a bit more about what Imagine is doing and why it's so exciting to you.
Sure. I think when I first joined as a board member, I wasn't sure where it was going. And the first 5 years of Imagine was really focused on research. And the thesis was there's virtually no edtech interventions, certainly on the continent, that have evidence of impact. And it's certainly something that at Rekindle, I had tried to tackle by doing, your simple pilots at the beginning, have an A group and a control group, and demonstrate the impact of those that did the training and didn't. And that was as far as my understanding of evidence went. Yeah. And then at Imagine, I was introduced to a new level of evidence in rigorous randomized control trials, ran by a head of research that is, really renowned globally, and what it means to provide objective third-party evidence that something truly works. And the thesis of the founding CEO of Imagine was that once we have evidence, it will open the doors for governments and funders to come in at a much bigger scale. Yeah. So, she was the right CEO for the beginning. Research is slow, boring, and tedious. I would have never been able to navigate that. And then we had the 9 randomized control trials and the first government ready to commit. And now the funders are moving from $500,000 to $10 million on the table. Let's scale this thing. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. Those data points is then what opened us up to sort of a whole other league of scale and funders that would have, never been envisioned. I'm like, oh, okay, this is an education, right? Yeah. And now we are similarly in Malawi, Tanzania, Sierra Leone, adopting sort of the similar model, where the idea is that at the early stages, we use philanthropic capital to launch the first few hundred schools, demonstrate the model, essentially de-risk it, to then open the door for development aid, such as World Bank or the Global Partnership for Education, GPE, who do not fund at scale at early risk things. They like to say they fund shovel-ready scale projects, to then come in with the $50 million in a year to scale something. So that's the thesis at this point, and we've been able to demonstrate it in Malawi, where in year 2 of Malawi, when we were launching another 500 schools, we raised $15 million philanthropic capital that was matched by $50 million in GPE. So actually demonstrating that we can activate and unlock aid, which is really powerful lever then that will then continue to apply. And by using philanthropy and aid to fund the upfront infrastructure, then the long-term plan is that governments take on the recurring maintenance costs of about $3 per child per year. And incredible. Proving that is essentially a 10-year game where we want to demonstrate that EdTech can be scaled and be sustainable on the continent.
Sure. So, I mean, it's easy to gloss over and miss what you just said there, but through letting go and looking forward, you just raised R500 million, right? Just for the next phase. And that's a stepping stone to the next phase and the next phase. So you're just operating now at a whole nother level of scaling impact on the continent. But you can do what you're doing now because of the chapters of the story that came before this, and the many moments in which you looked ahead and let go and then reskilled for the future. And you're doing that again now. So that's such a powerful theme that comes through.
And the bigger learning was actually that I am better for Rekindle learning in this role. Because now I'm learning, there's these other platforms through, the Imagine exposure and other things. I'm like, okay, Rekindle should also be doing this and this. And now I'm more helpful to them too, right? And that was a real epiphany.
Yeah. Wow. Now, people will call me crazy, but I'm a true believer that while it's got its risks, I mean, AI is the technology wave of the century. It is transformative for founders. It's transformative for solving a lot of like stubborn problems at scale. And it's very exciting what it unlocks for us as founders in terms of ability to scale. How is AI featuring in your vision for the future of Rekindle and Imagine?
Sure. Lots of hope there. I think of AI as accelerated improvement in whatever it is you're doing. At Rekindle Learning, one of the bottlenecks we hit in our need to sort of provide contextual, business-specific content and learning was that it took too much manpower and too long to repackage that and make it bespoke for each organization. And at the same time, though, that is the content that's the most meaningful, not the generic sales course on Udemy or whatever else is. And then, ChatGPT came out and I was like, yes, finally. Extraordinary. This could change our game and, ability to launch customers quicker. So now we're able to take presentations, PDFs, meeting recordings, whatever it is, ingest it into our custom model, and then it actually produces the video scripts, the learning steps and engagements with the learning objectives, because now we've designed it to produce the output in the format that is required for our end usage and customers. And at least now you get a draft in a few minutes, and you can cut down half, at least, of the time that you would have spent figuring out how to repackage this content. And for me, that's become even more important when we think about how fast the world moves and how quickly businesses have to evolve. Tomorrow you launch a new campaign or a new strategy, you can now package something in a day and get it out to 1,000 people to get on the same page, drive alignment and drive performance. That to me is the real unlock when when organizations can really get the potential of their people out.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. The speed to product, to clarity, to alignment, actually, it just makes things possible now that weren't possible before. And I'm very excited for what that's going to accomplish in the education space. And you are the person for the job, because you know how to ride technology waves. What are you expecting to need to learn to ride this wave?
What am I expecting to need to learn? I don't know if I have a name for it, but what in general I say is that, Rapelang, you don't need to know the answer. Just go in and sit and listen and engage. Because once you think you have to know the answer before you start, you're not going to start. And that's been a huge factor in also de-stressing, reducing anxiety. You do not need to know the answer. Let's get in the context. Let's experiment, and we can experiment our way to the answer. That's one of the most, for me, powerful revelations of the work that we've done with clients on the fast forward innovation side, is that we've been taught through school that you needed to analysis paralysis to death to get to an answer. And in a predictable world with a traditional market context that gave you answers, but that's no longer where we are at.
No.
And for what's hard for our clients is for them to be able to come to a week and book off 4 days and not know the outcome. Like, and they're asking us what's going to happen at the end. And we're like, we don't know. Let's build and engage customers and see, and experiment our way to the answer based on customer data that we collect. That for me is kind of how I tackle all of these things. Yes, I'll read the features and benefits, but let's just take it for a ride and see what comes out.
So, that operating model is so well suited to the AI era because it's the Wild West. Right? Who knows what's going to change and when and how? There's so much that's uncertain about the future. But what is certain is this is a potent technology with implications for every business, every industry, every market. And there's a lot of threat to existing business models and opportunity for pioneers and innovators. And your operating model is fundamentally one of learn by doing, experimentation, and figure out your way forward by trial and error, but informed trial and error. And I think that's exactly what's called for. So the good news for founders is the punchline there. You don't need to know what you're going to do with AI. You do need to get busy.
Yes, experimenting. And it's so cheap and free now. It's not like 20 years ago when you were starting a tech business, you had to buy your own server and put it in your house to run things. None of that anymore. There are so many easy tools, off the shelf, low code that a non-computer scientist can start using. I'm so jealous of the people graduating today and what they'll be able to build.
It's extraordinary. I mean, this is, I don't know, the first time I can think of where such a powerful technology is put in the hands of almost everyone for almost free compared to the power of the technology at one time. I mean, to have access to this kind of power of technology in the past, you needed to know the people.
Yes. Yeah, and you needed lots of money.
And that's
it's an incredible time, Jason, because now technology finally has the capacity to match our imagination and what we can do there.
That is such a powerful thought, that technology now matches our imagination. So as founders, entrepreneurs, builders, creators, this is our moment, right? This is the time where all the barriers to creating are collapsing because AI is collapsing cost of expertise, barriers, of experience, lack of experience, competence, capability.
Yeah.
It's collapsing those things and making it possible for us to do what previously was not possible.
Yeah. And run a world-class business without any of the capital that the IBMs and Microsofts had to do.
Okay, so you're pregnant with exciting, it's pregnant with possibility. I look forward to see how you ride this wave and where
me
things
too.
take
I'm
you.
also curious where it lands me.
So cool. Let's shift gear. It's been fascinating unpacking your story. Thank you for that privilege. We're going to do some rapid fire questions, and we're going to arm founders with some golden nuggets from Rapelang. So let's go. What book are you reading right now?
I am reading a lot of Alain de Botton's books, The School of Life in particular, as the one I'm reading now. I find that he's got a powerful way of helping us understand our inner minds and inner emotions in a way that's rational and logical that you can then look at and say, right, now that you've labeled these things, now you've got names to these things, what are you choosing to do about it? So I love his personal growth journey there.
Number one book you'd recommend to young founders about to start scaling?
I really enjoyed Shoe Dog, the story of Nike.
Yeah.
It's such an authentic story, how he started so small and just that hustle and bustle to get there. And in the world, before technology too. And all the lessons he learned around distribution and scale, I'm like, wow. Yeah. Yes, he started with the passion for the shoe, whatever else, but it was actually the strategy around growth and distribution and markets that ultimately got them there. I think, it doesn't have a lot of the technicalities of scale, but I think it warms my soul enough to then want to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, good. Your favorite quote?
My favorite quote, I did what I did when I knew what I knew. Now I know better, I do better.
That is so good. Most underrated skill in surviving scaling up?
Most underrated skill is self-awareness. Your ability to pause and reflect and wonder why you said that, why you behaved a certain way, and whether it still serves your greatest ambition or needs. And if it doesn't, to be able to choose something else. And I think you can go into any situation in the world and know nothing, but your ability to pause, reflect, process feedback, and be aware will then allow you to grow faster than anyone who is not in that context and get better.
High order principle, huh? Hardest leadership lesson you've learned the hard way?
Sure. The hardest leadership lesson that I've learned the hard way. You truly need to fire fast.
Yes.
The consequences of not firing fast are so devastating to your other team members who may have been bringing their A game to the organization in its growth and performance. To the individual too, because now they're stuck in an environment where they think they're doing something, but they should actually be somewhere else in the world. And you think you're helping them by allowing them to stay, but actually no. Everyone is an adult and everyone deserves an opportunity to find their path and shine. Let people go.
Couldn't have said it better. One change you've made that saved a company?
One change I've made.
Could be a mindset shift, process change.
Sure. I would say that the first thing I did at Imagine was to invest in a powerful data collection and remote monitoring platform for schools. At the time when I joined, we were still collecting data via USB from tablets in schools because of poor connectivity environments, etc. And most of the off-the-shelf tools that you think would work well for mobile device management, Wi-Fi routers, none of those things survived environments with poor connectivity. They froze, they fell over. You could only monitor 20% of the schools remotely. And in order to support this massive scale ambition, it was, we have to fix this. And everyone said, like, we don't understand why you're building this thing. I'm like, wait and see. Just wait and see. Let's build a fault-tolerant, highly robust platform built for context. And it'll change the game. I mean, we're finally rolling it out in all of our schools now, and it's going to be critical in our scale path.
So the power of a truly scalable system that actually works.
Yeah. And built and fit for purpose. People didn't understand, but surely there must be something out there. I'm like, no one is building for our context, for our need. And it's not rocket science. Yes, it's hard, but it's doable if you focus on the context and you understand the lived experience. And for me, that's the most powerful thing you can do with technology. I keep hearing a lot from Silicon Valley, surely you don't need this, buy that. I'm like, test it, done.
Yeah, you haven't operated here.
Yes.
If you were to rebuild Rekindle Learning from the ground up, starting today, what one thing would you do differently?
What I would do differently maybe is maybe focus less on the production side and get closer to what are the cool technologies now with AI that would allow us to get the right business intelligence, not informally, like whatever's going on in people's meetings and emails and whatever else is, what are the things that people are struggling with based on the data and intelligence in the organization that would then inform what we can help them learn and capacitate them in. That's I think the next big thing to unlock.
All right. Thanks for those nuggets. That brings us to the end. Rapelang, thank you. I mean, it's been a privilege. You've got so much gold to mine. We could do a series on your journey. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Rapelang.
Thank you. It's been an awesome conversation.
Yeah. So what stands out for me in Rapelang's story is the personal conviction and the courage to keep on pressing into the future through personal growth. The amount of times she has paused, reflected, made a bold decision to press forward, knowing that means letting go, and moving into the future unprepared, but willing to do it anyway, and to learn what she needs to learn and become what she needs to become along the way. It's very impressive and needed for founders who are going to navigate huge technology waves that carry us into a very uncertain but opportunity-primed future. And that's the time we're living in with this AI wave. It creates enormous opportunity for bold pioneers willing to have the same sort of courage and make the same sort of hard decisions and press into the future, letting go of the past and learning along the way. So timeless lessons from Rapelang. Thanks, Rapelang. What a privilege.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah. All right. If this content has triggered something for you, if you're feeling the conviction, the need to learn, to grow, to arm yourself for the future, the good news is you don't have to do it alone. Subscribe for more of this content on the Founders at Work podcast. Join us for the in-person and online on-demand masterclasses starting in January. Founders at Work, go through to our website, foundersatwork.co.za. You can sign up over there. And share this with fellow founders and leaders who need the same sort of growth and development. Thank you and happy scaling.